I'm Steph Garcia Psychos with D1 Ticker and Collegiate Sports Connect, and I'm joined today by Terrance Jones, Assistant AD for External Operations and Stadium Management at Jackson State. Thanks so much for joining me, Terrance.
Thanks, Steph. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
It's a pleasure to speak with you and learn more about your career and your trajectory. Let's start big picture. You were most recently the Deputy AD at Alabama State. Why was this move to Jackson State right at this point in your career?
I think when you think of the totality of what's being offered across the board at all HBCUs, I think you have to find your niche sometimes, and finding that niche sometimes, you may have to move around a little bit. It's a lot of people moving around in athletics right now as you look across the country, and when you think about how people are positioning themselves with a lot of some of the baby boomers retiring and moving on to the next chapter of their lives, it's time for some of the less seasoned or the more exuberant individuals to kind of step up and assume those mantles of leadership. And the best way to do that sometimes is to kind of get all types of tools from all over the place and put in your toolbox. And then when you do that, it makes you a better fit as you mature and you move on in your career trajectory.
Well, speaking of tools in the toolbox, you have deep experience when it comes to external operations, marketing, revenue generation, etc. What innovations do you hope to bring to the table at Jackson State?
Well, I tell you what, Jackson State is on an absolute roll right now. Our VP and Director of Athletics, Ashley Robinson, is truly a visionary. He doesn't think in a small picture or paradigm at all. And that's something that I directly kind of tie myself to. I've been fortunate enough to have some wonderful bosses along the way that have allowed me to think big picture as well. So just knowing Ashley and having a relationship with him over the years kind of put he and I in the same situation one time. So when he came down to Jackson, we talked about it a couple of times. The timing wasn't right. But more recently, while in my last year at Alabama State, he kind of knocked on the door and talked about some things, and we lined everything up, and it ended up working out. So I'm really excited about what's to come. But just tapping into just a little bit about my background experience. We've done, I say we do things, everything from mild to wild, sometimes in my experiences. And we've been fortunate enough to have people that support those visions. You can have the best ideas in the world, but if you don't have supporting staff, if you don't have an administration and others that would support what you're doing, then sometimes you kind of find those things kind of falling by the wayside and you end up in a survival mode where you're just doing just enough to get by. And we never want to do that because HBCUs have a very rich story to tell, and we want to make sure that we're using every tool at our disposal to tell that story.
Well, one role that you have at Jackson State is stadium management. I know you're still new, still getting your feet wet, but do you have a sense of what some of the upcoming priorities are when it comes to a facility standpoint for Jackson State?
Absolutely. On my first official day on the job, I'll tell you this. I was greeted and met by probably about 1,500 people at our gate, waiting outside of where our offices are, ready to buy season tickets. Now, this is in March. Our first game isn't until September. So the fact that the fans are that eager, that ready, that excited about a product that's at Jackson State speaks volumes to where the program is and where things are going with the university. I know that enrollment is up tremendously at the university. The entire buzz about everything's going on at the university. Just last weekend, we were fortunate enough to be able to play in the first round of the women's basketball championship, where Coach Tamika Reed took her team in and gave LSU all they could handle. But the alums, the fans, the people of Jackson, the city, everybody involved in the situation is extremely proud of the product that Jackson State has become. All years, Jackson State, just like other schools, have not necessarily been winning years, But now with the new trend and with everything's going on as of late, everybody is really, really tying themselves to the university and finding ways to give more and to do more. So that's what we completely invite. As we think about and we talk about the facilities of Jackson State, AD Robinson has a plan. He's working on some things kind of in front of the scenes and behind the scenes to get us on par with some of our sister institutions in the state and in the nation. Jackson State has some very older facilities. That some of them are being, they have plans to renovate. Others, they have plans to possibly do something different with. So that's where I think that I bring a couple of things to the table to help him in that vision, to help fulfill some of those things that he's looking to do, and also to try to find as many sponsors and people associated with the vision as we can to help us move it forward.
You're rolling right into my next question, which was AD Robinson has this mantra of building on tradition, blazing new trails. How do you hope to impact that vision?
That's a very strong statement when you think about, building on tradition and blazing new trails. For those that may or may not know about some of the traditions of Jackson State, they have a very rich university and as well as athletic presence, not only in the state, but across all HBCUs, across FCS and all others. You have a lot of people that'll speak about Walter Payton and some of the other things, but just to talk about the vision of our president, Dr. Hudson as well. He's reaching across state lines to reach over into Alabama and to forge relationships with community colleges and things of the like to get those students involved in what we're doing here at Jackson State, to give them somewhere to go after they finish their years at the junior college level or the community college level. So when you kind of wrap all that together, that's just a perfect recipe for success and just keeping things rolling.
Well, again, you are still pretty new to the university, to the department, but what is your sense of the growth potential for the Jackson State brand?
I think the sky's the limit. When you think about some of the things that you hear about when Coach Prime speaks about the university, we just had Mo Williams' press conference last week, I believe. When you think about some of the things that he talks about, Jackson right now, I think, is the hottest ticket in the HBCU FCS world, and it's a fast moving train. It's a lot of moving parts, but it's also exciting and exhilarating to be a part of the winning the championships. Like I said, Coach Reed, just to see all of the social media hits and all those things that she's been getting. We always talk about what that 36-hour cycle looks like after you compete that way. And I tell you what, is not disappointed. And our young ladies, and our community and everything else has been completely embraced. I know our website has received a bunch of hits and things of the like. So we just really want to keep that momentum going. And we want to really make sure that we're turning it into getting more students interested in what Jackson State has to offer. It's a beautiful city. It sits right up, right outside of the river and everything else. If I had to do it all over again with my daughter going to college, I would definitely try to push her this way.
Well, you've had stops, again, as we mentioned, Alabama State, you've been in Delaware, you've been in North Carolina. What do you need to learn about the Jackson State community and the student athlete that chooses to go there to be the most effective at your job?
Thanks. That's a good question, Steph. Normally, whenever I take on a new experience or a new institution, I try to place myself in the seat of a freshman. So, as you arrive at a new place, it's your first year, you're a freshman. As a freshman, what do you really want to know? One of the major and first things that I like to learn about a new place is I like to learn about the history and the culture of the place. Now, fortunately enough, I'm coming from a sister institution in the conference. So I'm familiar somewhat with Jackson and having traveled here and competed here and all those things. But what really makes it fun is when you can go down to the Civil Rights Museum, when you can learn more about Medgar Evers and his contributions to the nation and to the state as well. when you could go down even on Jackson State's campus and see where they had the National Guard riots and some of those other things. I really, really entrenched myself in that exposure, because normally, just like any other good coach would do when you're making your pitch toward a recruit or anything else, you tell them how those individuals, those students, can be the next trendsetters or the next people to affect change at a university once you tie it all together. So that's what I try to do. And it also kind of helps tell the story as we present things to possible and prospective donors or sponsors and everything else. We can say, hey, back in the 70s, JSU was known for this. This is how we've changed over time, but here's some of the things that remain the same. And here's where you play a role in helping us achieve that.
What's the best career advice you've ever received?
It's two pieces of career advice that I've received. And you know, I've gained a lot. One by a great AD that name rings bells kind of all over the country, Dr. Ingrid Wicker McCree, and her motto is to always continue to push forward. We may have some good days, we may have some bad days, and some days we don't know up from down. But whatever's going on, we have to remember the greater good about it and to continue to push forward. Another thing I got from my last stop and working with AD, who now serves as the Chief Development Officer for USA Basketball, Jennifer Lynn Williams, is to always be authentic and always remember to be loyal to your cause and to your values and whatever that means. A lot of people talk about loyalty and values, but it really doesn't come into play until you've lost or you stand potential to lose something behind what you believe. Are you willing, or are you as forthright in standing up for those values and those beliefs at that time as you are any other time when things are going good? And that's something that AD Robinson, as we talk about career trajectory and all those other things, because he has an open door policy and he's very transparent in his vision for his staff and how he wants to grow his staff, and then ultimately how he wants them to be in a better position than what they come. So that loyalty piece, that learning as much as you can where you are and all of that stuff, it will always get you way further. I know a lot of times in the business, things kind of happen really, really fast a lot of times, and people just want to get on the best situation as quickly as they can. But every move may not necessarily be the best move for you. Sometimes you have to hear no, or sometimes you have to kind of let things pass you by for you to be able to withstand the storm and you know, end up where you want to be in the long run and appreciate the journey. And it's just like when we talk about championships. Anybody can go out there and win a championship, but it takes special people to make sure once you win it, you can keep it. And that's everything from the compliance, your academic prowess, and all those other things, and making sure that you're being the best you.
That's so much great wisdom. I'm like scribbling down notes. I love it. Well, Terrance, last big question for you. We've mentioned this. You've had great experience at HBCUs. What is the next big conversation we need to be having regarding HBCUs in this country?
I think the next big conversation that we need to have in this country, and it's a familiar conversation, and it's a conversation that's been heard through and through, but I really wonder sometimes, are people really hearing what we're saying? We're not just good as advertised. We're better than advertised in a lot of the sense. But the other thing is that we can't do it. People love HBCUs, especially now. People really love our stories. They love what we're involved in, but the love and support have to be synonymous. With everybody that's pouring out in love and all those other things, we at the same time need to turn that into monetary gifts. We need to turn that into growth. One of the biggest testaments that you can do for HBCU is to send your students, send your children, your grandchildren, you know, your neighborhood. Tell them about JSU. Tell them about other HBCUs that are doing really good things. Send your kids to us, because not only is that going to help continue the legacy and the story, but it also, again, attracts and turns into dollars. We can't do it without everybody's support. And when we have everybody's support and the train is engaged and it's going down the track and the steam is steaming and the legs of the train are pumping, then we're really doing some good things. And we're on the rise, and we're going to continue to play hard. We're going to continue to have fun, but we're also going to pour into those students to make sure that when they step out into that real world, They're just as well rounded. They're just as globally competitive as all of our other counterparts.
Well, Terrance, there is so much momentum now for Jackson State, and there's so much momentum for you. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited to follow along with your career.
Steph, the pleasure is absolutely mine, and I look forward to talking to y'all once I've been here a little bit longer and can give a better report.